live from our studios in Kingstown, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. It's your favorite Thursday night show, Up Late with Sehon Marshall. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the host of tonight's show, Sehon Marshall.
Good evening, and welcome to this another edition of your favorite Thursday evening show, Up Late with Sehon Marshall. I am your host, Sehon Marshall. Now, please, I want you all to make sure that everything is copacetic and everything is percolating well. So you can let me know in the comments, right? Now I should be able to be seeing comments. Hold on. Yes, boy, and people don't jump on already. Right. Here are the comments. Right. Now, let me apologize for the extremely late start of this evening's program. Like, extremely late start. I am at least 20 minutes late in starting, and I'm going to apologize for that. But there's a reason. No, that don't make it right, but there's a reason. I'm currently out of the state of St. Vincent and Grenadines. I'm not in St. Vincent. I'm not home. I left St. Vincent Wednesday morning, just after 9, on Caribbean Airlines. I'm currently in New York, in Brooklyn, New York, and that's where tonight's program is coming from. Live, live. All right. Now you notice, I'm trying to make sure I stay on my schedule. You notice yesterday I had present please, today I had present please, and I am at home because I have to make sure that I'm there for those individuals who support this program day in, day out. Daily for Present Please, and every Thursday night for Uplift with Sehon Marshall. So I had to make sure that we do not miss any of the programs. Now, the problem was in moving, I forgot some of the parts. I had to move my whole studio, and some very critical parts were not moved with me, and so yeah, that's the problem. So you please forgive me. I was setting up since around 8:30, but realized, oh shoot, I didn't work with this or I didn't work with that, and that was the problem. So please forgive me. All right. Nevertheless, we are here tonight, and we are going to have a fantastic program because we have a lot to talk about. Let me thank all of you guys who've been supporting this program, Uplift with Sehon Marshall, and continue to support Present Please. I meet people all the time. When I was traveling on Wednesday, a young man walked up to me. He's from Glen. I believe he said he's a sailor and he was heading to Australia. He said, "You don't know me, but I know you. I listen to you every single day on Present Please, and I watch Uplift with Sehon Marshall." To that young man, thank you so much for reaching out. Uh, and also, many individuals have been supporting the program. And I'm talking about supporting financially. And to that individual who made that special contribution today, that donation today, thank you so much. Your donation is helping, and all the other donations, as well as those of you who've activated membership, it's helping to carry the program along. So I really appreciate the fact that you not only watch and message and engage and make sure that this program has viewers, but you also contribute your hard-earned money towards the program, and I'm really grateful for that. All right. Now, just before I came here, my good friend and brother Terrence Edwards came and picked me up. We went to the funeral of a fallen Vincentian, Mikey Richards. And for all the individuals, all the Vincentians I met there who reached out to me, who welcomed me, who approached me, who just simply said "present, please." So I know that the audience in New York and Brooklyn is growing. It's there and it's growing. Let me thank you so much for that. All right. Continue to look, continue to share, continue to interact with the program because that's how it grows. All right. So listen, I'm just so listen, I am just so overwhelmed with gratitude for all of you who continue to support this program, these programs, well, both Uplift with Sehon Marshall and the commentary present, please. I'm really, really so grateful for your support, for your love that you continue to give. All right. All right. Now, I haven't shared it yet, so you're going to give me 2 seconds so I can share. I'm going to do that now. Terry doesn't like this part. He thinks I'm supposed to hire somebody. Well, Terry, when you start to contribute $2,000 a month, then I will hire somebody um, to do this. You and or you could contribute 500 go bells, 500 and so on, and then maybe I could pay somebody just to come on to share, right? But until that time, you understand, we just had to do it so like our day, right? So I'm sharing it, and that's it shared there. I'm going to share it somewhere else. I'm sharing it on my WhatsApp so that people who are on WhatsApp can get the link, because a number of individuals look forward for me sharing the link on WhatsApp. All right. So I'm sharing, and I have one more share to do, and that will be to share it on Instagram and on Facebook. So I'm doing that now. I'm doing that now. Oh wow, President Please did well today, boy. I notice you guys are really lapping it up. Yes, we're doing that here, and we're almost done. We are almost done. Good. So it's shared now. Now the visuals may not be the best tonight, again because I'm in a makeshift studio. I'm not in my regular studio. So again, y'all go forgive me. Y'all just treat me nice and forgive me. So I don't expect tonight to be any different. All right. So what's been happening in the news? Now tonight I want to focus on the issue of education. I'm going to focus on that tonight. I'm also going to focus a little bit on it tomorrow when I do President Please. But the issue of education has always been near and dear to my heart. And as you come on, I always say, comrades, come on. And when you come on, say where you're coming from, indicate that so that individuals can, President Please, live in New York before Manhattan in the village. All right. Good night, good night, good night to you, Ken Backus, and all of the others who are saying good night and indicating where you're from. All right. Now, I've always been very public and also very passionate about my support for the ULP, and that if I were to single out one policy that the government, the then ULP government, had that encouraged and drove my support for them, it would be the education revolution. Because I have seen what education has done for working class families across this country. So I want to focus a little bit on education tonight for the program. But I also want to talk a little bit about the interview that was done by Fitzgerald Bramble on NDP 97.1. At this point, at this point, it makes very little sense for us to come out and tell anybody that the NDP is lying or they lied to the voters. At this point, it doesn't need to be mentioned. It's not necessary to mention it, because by now, the voters, those who were first-time voters and listened to the NDP campaign and decided to vote for them, those who were ULP supporters and decided to switch because they wanted something different, those who were ULP supporters and decided to stay home because they were tired of the ULP, and even those of us who listened to their campaign and tried to steer Vincentians away from the lies of the NDP, at this point, it's like you're fed up. What more can you say? Because almost immediately after winning the elections in November of 2025, the NDP began to lie, denying, in the face of all of the records there, that they made certain promises. They began to just lie flat out. Oh, we didn't say this. We never said that. We never said this. And the records are there. Keep in mind that they printed a card, and on the card was written, keep this card so you can hold us to the promises we make. Now in government, anyone who tries to hold them to the promises that they made are being almost shouted down. I heard Minister Bramble refer to individuals as being impatient. But you can't tell me People are being impatient when you made them a promise to do certain things within a particular time frame, and when the time frame expires and they ask you, why didn't this or that happen? You go, you're impatient. Look, I have children, but I'm going to use just one. So one of my children has a birthday on the 7th of July. So I decide to promise and say, listen, within a month after your birthday, I'm going to buy you a car. Within a month, 30 days, within 30 days from your birthday, I am going to buy you a car. I can't give it to you on your birthday because I'm working on certain things. But within 30 days from your birthday, I will buy you a car. Now, 30 days comes, it's now August 7th, and there's no car. My daughter comes to me and goes, Dad, you know you promised me a birthday for my car, a car for my birthday, but you didn't say you'd give it me on my birthday. You said you'd give it to me within 30 days. It's the 7th of August. Actually, Daddy, it's the end of August, and I haven't seen the car. I would think that my first response to my daughter would be, yes, you know what? I did promise you that I would give you the car within 30 days from your birthday. And it has been more than 30 days. But you know what? I was expecting certain things to happen, and it hasn't happened. I was expecting a contract to come in. I was expecting some money, something, but it didn't happen. So give me some time, and I'll work on that. Now, if I said that to my daughter, I'm sure she'd be disappointed. But with that type of openness and honesty, I'm sure she'd understand. But instead of doing that, I said to my daughter, but no, I never said that to you. I never said that to you. I never, absolutely never said that to you. So I don't see why you expect me to give you a car when I never promised you a car. And so my daughter says, but Dad, you did, you know. As a matter of fact, when you said it, because it was my birthday, there's a video of you saying it because one of my friends was recording when you said it to me. And so I can show you. And after proving to me that I said it, my response then is, but why are you so impatient? You can't be so impatient. You got to give me time. And I'm sure she would say, I'm not being impatient, Dad. You gave a specific time within which you would complete it. And so I'm just holding you to that. If something has happened that makes it unable, that make it impossible for you to fulfill that promise, just tell me. And that's the position where the NDP is. First, they deny, and then when they are fact checked, they say impatient. They say, oh, too much too soon. They say greedy. And that's essentially what Bramley is saying, you know. So he went on NDP 97.1 FM and they asked him about the cutting of VAT in 60 days. The first thing Bramble did was deny. He said, can't fool me with that. You can't fool me with that, he said. Excuse me. And they said, let me fact check. They went to AI and AI said, yes, you did. It was a critical part of your 4-point plan, the cutting of VAT from 16% to 13% within the first 30 days. And he denied it. But I know that those guys had the card. They had the card. However, they chose not to. They chose not to look for the card. But I'm supposed to have the card somewhere. So let me see if I have it to show you what the card says. Because I have the card somewhere. So let me look. To see if I find the card. Where are we now? Let's see. Let's see if we find the card. I must find the card because I've used it so many times. So many times. I'll find it for you. Where are we? Where are we? I've used it so many times. I'll find it just now. Because I want to put up the card so you can tell me whether or not the NDP did say it. Where is that card? I used the card just recently, I used the card just recently. Where is that card? I used that card just recently. Where is it? Where is it? Resilient, that. Where is that card? I used it just recently. I used it recently. Let me see. No, it's not that one. 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 I will find it for you guys. I have I have so many things. Here it is. Here it is. So I want you to see it. I want you to see it. I'm going to put it up now. And I want to put it full screen. Keep this card. That's what it says to the top in the blue. Y'all reading? Keep this card to see that we will keep our promises. Next line. In the first 60 days of an NDP government, we will. Are you reading with me? In the first 60 days of an NDP government, we will. And what does it say? What's the first one? Pledge 1, because they make 4 pledges. Pledge 1, slash prices. Cut VAT on everyday goods and residential electricity. That's a pledge. Pledge 1. Cut VAT on everyday goods and residential electricity. That's their promise. The NDP government will do that within the first, not any 60 days, not 60 days from budget, not 60 days from carnival, not 60 days from the first quarter, but in the first 60 days of an NDP government. The NDP won on the 27th of November. They were sworn in on the 1st or the 2nd, I can't remember, of December. If you give them 60 days, by the end of January, they should be cutting VAT from 16% to 13%. That is their first pledge. That's their first pledge. That wasn't pledge number 2 or pledge number 3. Let me keep it up there. That was their first pledge. They had always said that they were going to cut VAT. They made VAT out to be a demon and a devil. Everything was VAT. As a matter of fact, according to them, one of the reasons why there was a cost of living crisis, and according to them, why the government, the ULP government, wasn't doing anything to address the cost of living crisis was because of VAT. VAT was seen as wicked, as pushing poor people. So we're going to cut VAT from 16 to 13%. I remember in many debates, Dr. Gonzalez, then Prime Minister, Camilo Gonzalez, Foreign Finance Minister, would say, listen, to cut VAT by 3%, 3 percentage points, is going to create a shortfall of a certain amount of money. Where are you going to get that back from? What are you going to do to recuperate that money that you're losing from VAT? There was no answer. But having already demonized VAT to the extent that they had, they then created this whole thing that VAT is the source of all of your problems. If you go to the supermarket and you can't buy, you spend X amount of hundred and it goes your back small, it's because of that. You don't like Vinlek. Why? Because of that. The NDP basically told Vincentians that is the source of your cost of living problems. And so when we come in within 60 days, we are going to address that major source of your problems. Because your problems begin and end with that. So now, Mr. Bramble says, we never said we were going to cut VAT within 60 days. As a matter of fact, he said, don't try, nobody can fool me with that one day. Nobody can fool me with that one day. Well, the truth is, Bramble, nobody's trying to fool you. They are doing what you said. They are keeping the card to see that you keep your promise. And it appears that if anybody fooled anybody, it's you and your party that fooled Vincentians. And many of them fell for it. So the question is, can we expect a reduction in VAT this year? And me raising it is me keeping them is me keeping the NDP to their promise. Because that's what they promised. I didn't beg them to cut VAT. I didn't ask them to cut VAT. I didn't tell them they must cut VAT. The NDP decided that VAT was the problem and they were going to cut VAT. When your leaders lie to you so blatantly, what is the recourse? And I know people are going to jump up and down and get on and talk about, rather give all of the excuses possible. It's like the NDP supporters have an excuse book. And when their party is found wanting, which is what has been happening on almost every single... Fitzbramble gave their party 10 out of 10. He gave them 10 out of 10. He said because they have fulfilled every promise that they made. Well, if you look at the 60-day promise, if you want to be strict on what they promised, they didn't deliver on any of them. Let's look at the pledge, the 60-day pledge. Pledge 1, cut VAT. VAT ain't cut. So if out of the 4, 1 out, that's 75%. That's 7.5 out of 10. That's 7.5 out of 10. He gave them 10 out of 10. 7.5 out of 10. Issue a bonus salary, which means a double salary, which is what they promised, a double bubble. They didn't give you that. No, well, a few public servants might have gotten a double salary because they issued a $2,000 bonus. So anybody making $2,000 or less got a double salary and even more. But more than 4/5 or about 4/5 of the public servants did not get a double salary. So that promise was not fulfilled. That promise was not fulfilled. They shifted it and so forth, but it was not what they promised. So I can't say you delivered on that promise either. You gave a bonus, but not the bonus salary that you promised. So I can't give you that. Double poor relief. Now I'll give you a pass on this one because when you made the promise, poor relief was $250. And since you've been in government, you carried it to $500. But strictly speaking, by the time you got to office, poor relief was $350. And so if you're going to double poor relief, it should be $700. But I'm going to give you a pass because you increased poor relief. You did. And yes, you doubled it from what it was when you made the promise. So if anything, I'll give you that. I'll give you full marks for that. Because at the time you made the promise, it was 250. You got into office, you made it 500. You didn't double poor relief because that was not what you meant. It wasn't 250 when you got into office, but I'm going to give you that. And finally, reinstate uh, uh, jobs with benefits. That you failed because you told the teachers you can't deal with things like back pay and so on now. You could deal with that later. So you have not done anything on that really because the individuals, I keep saying teachers, I don't know why. The individuals who return to work under the same conditions that they would have had they returned to work on the 24th, the 25th, the 26th of November. Same conditions. So you didn't do anything there. So I can't give you that. So out of being generous, me, I'm giving you one that you've fulfilled based on conditions, and you won't tell me that you gave your party 10 out of 10. Now, I am sure, like I said, those who support the party, those who support the NDP, are falling over each other to try and justify it. But the truth is, your party failed. Your party failed. And Bramble decides to compound that failure by telling Vincentians, we never promised you that we were going to cut VAT within 60 days. That was a long-term plan. That was something geared for the longer term. But the card that is still on the screen, I haven't moved it yet, is there, and it says cut VAT within the first 60 days. The first 60 days. Listen, we told you, the members of the ULP administration, those of us who on radio, warned you about the impossibility of the promises that were being made by the NDP. We were telling you it couldn't happen. They couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. But you decided that you were going to believe them. You did. And now, unfortunately, all you are getting are lies after lies after lies. You're being fed lies, and if you're happy with those lies, then go right ahead. But that's where things are. Now, I didn't plan to spend so long on that whole Bramble thing. As a matter of fact, I didn't even plan to touch it. I did just plan to pass over it. But I spent longer than I wanted to address it. So now I'm going to deal with what I said I would deal with, the issue of education. Yeah, I'm having a lot of movement around, so please excuse all the noise that you're hearing. I want to talk about education. One of the biggest failures of the NDP under former Prime Minister Mitchell was their failure to develop the human resource of our country. They failed miserably in educating Vincentians to take part in what was a changing world, a world that was changing very swiftly in front of us, but we were lagging behind. We were, based on the Human Development Index, the first time it was captured in 2003, I believe. We were dead last for the OECS, and we were 12th in CARICOM in terms of where our human capacity was. Length of years in school, life expectancy, and those type of things. We were 12th in CARICOM Haiti, and I believe might have been Guyana were below us. Excuse me. But in terms of the OECS, we were last in the OECS. Everybody was ahead of us. And while that might be an abstract concept for you to fathom, for you to take in, Human Development Index would have mean 78 point something, what have you. The practicalities, the practical example, the practical manifestation of that was borne out in everyday life. We had a situation where there was a common entrance exam that served as a gatekeeper to secondary school. And many of our children who were 11 and 12 years old were denied the opportunity to get into secondary school. Every year, common entrance results, about 38 to 40, 41% of the students pass every year. 2,000 something, 1,500 something students might write, 1,600 students might write, 600 something might pass. It was during those times you had things like, thank you very much, Tammy. Big up on that super day. Lemon character. Okay. All right. So you had the exclusion of a significant number of our students, a 40% coming out. Imagine 1,500 students writing common entrance. And 40% would be about 600 something students actually going to secondary school. So you're still looking at about 900, 800 something of those students not going to secondary school. Where were they going? Well, some would go to seniors. A few of them might write individual school exams, Mountain View, Intermediate High, Bishop College, Emmanuel High School, and so forth. And a few others, depending on the space, may get in North Lee, in Peterborough, they get a pick. So they might actually, the school might actually, based on spaces available, allow students who, excuse me, 150 is the pass mark, students down to maybe 135 may get a pick. So a few additional students may go to particular school outside of those who passed. So if you want to be generous, you could say sometimes it might go to as high as 50% with all of the additional spaces created at individual schools to their individual examinations and giving a pick and so on, and who might know a principal and that kind of thing. But, excuse me, it still meant that more than half of our students, or at least half of the students who wrote the common entrance who were 11, 12 years old, had no access, no opportunity for a secondary education. What became of them? Some went into trade, naturally, became apprentices, trade work, and so forth. Um, Many of them lost by the way. Young ladies might have gotten pregnant. Young men got into crime and violence and drugs and so forth. By the way, somebody messaged me on Facebook telling me about somebody, an individual, a young boy who was going to, I think it was Georgetown Bishop, they said, who decided at Farm 1, listen, I done with school, I go and plant weed. And the person decided that when leave school, leave Georgetown Bishop at Farm 1 and go plant weed. Now, if individuals know of those kind of individuals, that persons similar, you know, keep it to yourself. I don't want nobody lock up nobody. So you have that problem at secondary school. One of the first things that the ULP did when they came into office within the first couple of years was they expanded the spaces. They built wooden structures. They built some in grammar school and so forth to accommodate more students. to prepare for the education revolution, where they were going to do universal access. Now, I must remind you, for those of you hearing this for the first time, tell you that when there was a World Bank visit here in about 1998, and Annie Muses was the prime minister, and they talked about universal access. In other words, allowing all 100% of the students into school. Annie Muses said, that can't happen now. It's impossible. And that an NDP government would consider, not implement, but would consider the possibility of universal access in 2030. So, worst case scenario, had the NDP been in office all this time, we still would not have had. It is quite possible, based on their pronouncements, that we still would not have had universal access to secondary education. Think about that for a second. Think about that for a second. But by 2005, 4 years after coming into office, the Unity Labour Party launched the education revolution and began implementing it, and specifically universal access to secondary education. Everybody who wrote common entrance, everybody who was eligible for secondary school had an opportunity to go to secondary school. So remember I said that they built these wooden structures in different schools to create space. Rochelle Ford, who was a senator at the time, was the one who moved that motion for the debate on the education revolution. And in the dividing of votes in the House, because they didn't want to just say yay, all in favor say aye, oppose say no, the ayes have it. No. They asked for a division of vote. In other words, they called everybody and asked them how they voted. No member of the then NDP administration voted for the education revolution. They didn't support it. They didn't support it. I had to remind you of that. But by 2005, space was created for all 100% of the students eligible for secondary school. And that's been remarkable. Because of that, schools in our country were both expanded in terms of bigger schools were built, where schools were falling apart or fell in disrepair. So, for example, Barley Secondary School, a much bigger school was built around at Peter Soap, accommodate more students. But keep in mind that to accommodate the growing student body, the ULP opened additional schools across the country. I'm going to name for you a number of schools that did not exist before 2005. I'm going to name for you a number of schools that did not exist before 2005. Now, all of these are arguments I made before the elections, during the elections, that people didn't pay attention to. As a matter of fact, I remember Jomo said on Boom one morning that he doubts very much in the elections to come in November, that people would be going into the election, the polling booth and voting for Labour because of my argument on the schools Labour built and expansion of education. He said that. So these are things that people know because we spoke about them. So let me continue. Let me name the schools that didn't exist before 2005. There was no Sandy Bay Secondary School. Never existed. Didn't happen. There was no George Stevens Secondary School at Connery. Never existed. Didn't happen. There was no West St. George Secondary School in Bel Air. Didn't exist. There was no Thomas Saunders in Richmond Hill. As a matter of fact, if I remember, that school will be named Richmond Hill Primary School. Not true? There was no Bookament Bay Secondary School before 2005. The education revolution saw the addition of 5 brand new secondary schools. If for argument's sake, each of those schools on average have about 200 students, you're looking at an additional 1,000 students added to the secondary school population. If all of our students were being schooled, where would I get them from? What was the point in building new schools? But the schools were built. The schools were built. You know, on the morning, the same morning when Jomo called to rebut me, I had made the point that under the NDP, the same number of secondary schools they met when they came into office in 1984 were the same number of secondary schools they left in 2001. Let me repeat that. The same number of secondary schools they met in 1984 were the same number of secondary schools they left when they were voted out of office in 2001. They did not add an additional school, any additional schools to the schooling population when they left. Somebody might say, what about Bethel? Well, Bethel Secondary was a school behind Park. It was moved to Camden Park, but the school existed. When the NDP came in 84, I have a sister who went to Bethel. So tell me the school, the new school, the additional school. None. But we can look at the schools that existed in 2001 and we can go to 2025 and we could say, well, when Labour left, apart from the schools that they met, and many of them had upgrades done, the secondary school in Union Island, the secondary school on Beckway. Oh, I didn't mention Canawan. Anybody say Canawan? Nobody say Canawan? Me come as them sleeping tonight, boy. Nobody say, see, I miss Canawan. You miss Canawan Secondary School. In 17 years, the NDP didn't see any need to build a school on Canawan. But every minute, Terrence Oliver, anything. School on Canawan, school on Canawan, school on Canawan. Labour built it. Labour built it. So let me go again. Sandy Bay, George Stevenson Connery, West St. George, Thomas Saunders, Bookament Bay, Canawan. 6 additional secondary schools were built over the period of, well, I would say 20 years. Because I started at 2005 after the education revolution. NDP didn't do one. The same way the NDP spruced up some schools, some secondary schools during that time. So the DULP, we spruced up the Union Island Secondary, we spruced up the Beckway Anglican High. As I said, we did the excuse me, we did the Barley Secondary School, and we could talk about the schools that we renovated and we put on labs and so forth, expanding and improving education. And it is interesting to show that while under the NDP, you had a 40% pass, 30-some% pass in common entrance. And for those of you who taught like me, you would know that some schools streamed. Everybody didn't go for the common entrance. You might have Junior 5A, Junior 5B, bigger schools that might have C. Everybody from Junior 5A go in. Some from Junior 5B go in. But see, you might struggle. You're going straight to seniors. You ain't writing nothing because you ain't going to bring no numbers to the school. And they're having 40% passes. Now, with everybody being sent, you're getting 60 or 70% pass with very good grades. And now you can't say, oh, government making it easy for people to look good. No, because it's a Caribbean wide exam now. It's a Caribbean primary exit assessment. Just like CXC. It's a regional exam. And our students are performing well. What did that show? It showed that as long as our students are given the opportunity, they will make use of it. And they have been so doing. They have been making use of that opportunity, of all of the opportunities. And when those students go on to secondary school and time come to write subjects, they get in the 8 and 10 and 12 and 14 subjects, a bunch of grade ones. And most importantly, that is not limited now to Girls High and Grammar School and St. Martin's and Convent. No, students from Pittibadell and Sandy Bay Secondary, eh? Barley Secondary, Bookman Bay Secondary, Thomas Sanders, they are there. They're getting the 8 subjects, the 9 subjects, the 10 subjects, the grade ones. They're going to community college, all of the divisions, and they're doing well. That is why, that is why I loved the ULP government. That is why I was able to go and speak about them boldly, because I saw what they were doing and I loved what they did for education. I said it many times. I said it many times. When the ULP was building the wooden structures in the schools to accommodate students, the current deputy prime minister, he commented and said, they're watering down the education system. He didn't like the fact that too many boys are going to grammar school, because to him, having gone to grammar school was some sort of prestige, some sort of status that apparently belonged to only him and people close to him. Didn't like the fact that most places were created and more people were attending grammar school. He saw that as a watering down of the system. Explain that to me. How? How is educating people watering down the system? But that's the kind of contempt they have for the working people of this country. They don't think you belong in certain spaces. When they come from country, we know Hollywood. You don't belong in certain spaces. You don't belong in grammar school. Stay a country. Go Georgetown Bishop and Pittibidel. We're going grammar school and high school for and coming to rub shoulders with we. That's the problem they have with it. That's the problem they have with the education revolution. Problem they have with the education revolution. Only certain names. The children of lawyers, the sons and daughters of lawyers supposed to be lawyers. And it hurts them that children of the working class are lawyers too and are rubbing shoulders in the court. It hurts them that children of the working class are doctors, are engineers, are accountants, because those are reserved things. The type of classist attitude that they have, where you should be in your place. What's wrong with you? You work at university for? Eh? You work at university. You're young, relax yourself. University, not for you. University, not for you. And that's the challenge I had with the NDP. And that is what the ULP did for education. That made me love the ULP. I saw, for me, opportunities, even though I was much older. I saw for my children opportunities, opportunities that me alone couldn't afford to provide for them. And I saw many ordinary Vincentians like myself, with families like mine, benefiting from those opportunities. Now we talk Let me talk university. I skipping out college. I skipping out college. The NDP bought the lands. They built the A-level college out at Villa. ULP came and turned it into a community college, offering up to degrees now. But skipping out that because I want to talk university. Because currently, education is not a game, you know. And those young people and young professionals who benefited and are products of the education revolution, listen, you took something sacred for granted and you kicked down the bucket of milk after drinking from it. And God and your conscience go hold you. Are serious. Are serious. I don't want a song so, but I have a song so. You took something that was sacred for granted. And having drank from the milk, the bucket of milk, having drank from the well of the education revolution, you turned around and you kicked it down, preventing other Vincentians from benefiting. And God and your conscience will deal with you. You see, when I was going to school, 2 scholarships when I graduated, 2. Over the years, it increased because some politician picked me, didn't come first or second, so they had to create a third one for the politician picked me, and so on and so forth. They went up to 4. You had you had sprinkling of students across here. They had people who could have go to UWI. At the time, there was something called the College of Arts, Science, and Technology, CAST. People would go during the summers to do their diploma and so on at CAST and so forth. That College of Arts, Science, and Technology is now called UTech. So you had a sprinkling of Vincentians going to university. There was such a paucity, there was such a scarcity of graduates. In the teaching profession, for example, when you went to the primary schools, there were only 4 teachers, graduate teachers assigned to primary schools across the entire country. And there were 60 something primary schools then. 4 graduate teachers, 60 something primary schools. Throughout the public service and so forth, things like degrees were hard to come by because they were expensive. The NDP government, to their credit, started paying the economic cost of students studying at UWI. So that would ease them up a bit. But even though they pledged to pay it, very often, this government, the NDP government under former Prime Minister Mitchell, was owing significant sums to the University of the West Indies and paying it late and owing it and so forth. And many students would complain that during their tenure, there are times when, because their economic cost wasn't paid, they were locked out of the classes and they couldn't get to go to class. That was the embarrassment that Vincentian students had. Even as the government committed, they promised you they started, they're going to pay the economic costs. But too often, it was late. It was in massive arrears, causing embarrassment, loss of instructional time to our Vincentian students. That was what NDP did under former Prime Minister Mitchell. So when I went on radio and talked about the lack of commitment of the then NDP to education, I knew what I was talking about. Listen, I served as a teacher. Like I get it right now. Because me not guess now. Me not guess. I served as a teacher in this country from October of 1991. October of 1991 to January of 2002. January of 2002. My good friend Pat and others, Joanne and so on, who follow up with Sehon Marshall and President Please. We go to teachers college together. I'm a qualified teacher. 1994 to 1996, I'm a qualified teacher I have a University of West Indies certificate in primary education. That's what it was then. So when we talk about the evolution of education, I guess, I'm not guessing, not guesswork. So when I talk about the lack of commitment by the then NDP to education, I know what I'm talking about. And I have seen, I was a teacher then, because I was a student, then I was a teacher. Now me I pick need to go school. I see the difference in what is happening. I see the government giving laptops to students. I see how common entrance has been transformed to CPA. I see what's happening in the secondary school. I see the kind of training that is the opportunities for training that's available to teachers now. No, I ain't got that about teacher attitude because naturally teachers, police, and nurses and so on are products of our society. And if our society, if we talk about a degeneration of attitude and morals within the society, then naturally you're going to see that coming through in the professions because it's people. So I ain't talking about that. Not at least not tonight. So we talk education and we still the university. And what did this government do? Ralph came into office, expanded opportunities for university training. Under the NDP, for example, law wasn't seen as a priority area. Couldn't get scholarship and so on to go do law. Of course, it wasn't priority because they wanted to make sure that a certain group of people became lawyers. That has changed. As a matter of fact, now the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines assists students to do the bar. They go to Norman Manley or Hugh Wooding to do the bar. They get assistance from the government. It's a heavy course, costly, because they don't spend how much money to do your LLB at UE or wherever. You have to go and do the bar. You have to do the licensing exam, the professional exam. So they started to expand opportunities. The national scholarship started to expand in number, and the government gave different categories of scholarships. And more than that, there was an independent criteria for each class of scholarships. So whether it's a national scholarship, which is a 5-year, which is the value of a 5-year medical degree, or an exhibition or a bursary, they expanded different categories. And no longer was it just the Division of Arts and General Studies, the community college. Now, students from the technical, vocational, from teachers, and so on, are all included in the national scholarship. So if you pass at a certain level from the teacher division, you get national scholarship once you qualify. If you pass with the marks from the technical vocational, you qualify. Good comrade of mine from Baga, Bottle and Glass was proud to tell me, well, I saw I'd seen the photo before. Her daughter, excellent athlete. Went to Barley Secondary, went to the Division of Technical Vocational Education, Island Scholar. Going to go study. That's what ULP did. 1 year, I was press secretary. It's 116 scholarships, bursaries and exhibitions given. It was inching up 60 something, 70 something. Next thing, 1 year, me 100 something. There is people, ordinary working class people, having the opportunity to go and study. In addition to all of that, the government negotiated, you still had the Cuba scholarship, we negotiated the Venezuelan scholarship, we negotiated scholarships in Mexico. I went to Azerbaijan, the Russian scholarship, those scholarships were existing before. It was expanded. You have Turkish scholarships, you have Romanian scholarships right now. The Taiwan scholarship was started by the Youth Labour Party. So additionally, you have all of these foreign scholarships from foreign friendly governments for students. Labor expanded and broadened that. Anybody who's my age, in their 40s, could tell you they can't remember between even 1990 and 2001 that level of those numbers of Vincentians all over the world studying. Trinity St. David gave you University of Wales, Trinity St. David gave us 40 something. I remember that. These are all things that the ULP did, And I have to talk what upon my heart. Because if I don't talk what upon my heart, I'll be a hypocrite. A lot of those students, too many of them, voted against the education revolution because they vote against labor. They vote out labor. What they want? What they want? A promotion? I noticed as the government also started to. Well, I didn't even start it, but the, it became popular. Individuals applying for the tuition scholarships at Service Commission. Now this tuition scholarship was as much as $25,000. So if you're doing a course, it's 5,000, it's 7,000, is 10,000, 12,000 the tuition, up to 25,000 you apply, you submit whatever submit, excuse me, and so forth. And year after year, 600 one year. And every year keep inching up. And I remember as press secretary, the very first year, PMC, well, yeah, them. What? I think that it was 1,500. And it has hurt me heart. It does wring me heart when I hear dishonest people talk about only labor people just get. So of the 1,500 people who apply and PMC, get all of them are 1,500 labor people, labor supporters. You're telling me that particular year, 1,500 people applied and PMC, y'all are labor people? That's the dishonesty, That's the dishonesty. Last year, about 2,500 people applied. They all got. Only labor people. I remember I was on Jamo's program, or maybe he was on my program. I can't remember which it was, but we were engaging on one of the programs, and I mentioned that, and he said, "Oh, but Sion, last year only happened because it was the election year." And I said, "But no, Jamo, because in previous years, even while I was press secretary, everybody who applied got. So it's not last year, the 25th, last year, 2025, when everybody who applied got. It wasn't the first time that happened. It was not the first time that happened. Oh, and don't forget, the amount of people who get assistance for education through lottery. Well, used to. You know what's happening now. And I tell you something. When the ULP lost the elections in November, I said to friends of mine, I said, what's my biggest concern? My biggest concern is for the students who applied for and got tuition assistance from Service Commission. You see what I mean? I say, assuming that they all get the money for the 2024, 2025, 2026 academic year, they are all going to come back and apply in 2026 for the 2026, 27 academic year. And I'm waiting to see if the NDP would give them all. Well, it appears that I didn't even have to wait that long for trouble to start brewing. Because, of course, they don't get all the money one time. You bring You come and you show, well, listen, I'm applying for the 2025-2026 academic year for UE. The amount is $12,000. How much is the first semester? 3,000. They pay the first semester. So all of them who applied last year, they got the money for that semester and it's paid. It's paid. So smooth sailing up until December. And many of them, too many of them, I can't say many of them because I don't know how much, too many of them went and they voted against their tuition scholarship, their tuition assistance. Yeah. Too many of them. They took the scholarship and then they put on the NDP jersey and it's time for change. And apparently, they did not look down the road. I looked down the road and I wonder. They didn't wonder. They didn't wonder what down the road would look like voting out the government that just gave them the bursary. Because they heard, we're going to abolish all fees. What fees? $800 for the year? That's fees? I go get double salary. Oh yeah, let me vote against the bursary, man. Because I get double salary. So at least I go take the double salary and pay my university program. They got the scholarship. And who want to repost this and see me cost people the business? in a business. They got the scholarships from the education revolution that the government, the ULP administration provided. Opportunities that didn't exist before. Opportunities that were as a result of a deliberate policy of the ULP administration. They benefited from it. They improved their lives as a result of it. And then they decided they will vote against it. And you think a vote will have consequences? So now, I did home one day. I think I was recording. So my phone was on silent and so on. When I check, so I see a good friend of mine, missed call. It's very strange because I'm a good friend, but so me call back. Mr. Marshall, my child say that he applied for the tuition scholarship last year, service commission. The first part was paid for September to December, but January will not pay up to now. And my child is locked out from the portal and so on at UE and so on. Can't go to class. That sounds so familiar. And it wasn't I thought maybe it's an isolated incident, but it wasn't, because other students are complaining about that. Other students, you got 3 education ministers, 3. And you can organize people to get the school fee paid. What are you prioritizing? Education or the ministers? My assumption was that with 3 education ministers, things go run smoothly. Apparently not. Because people ain't getting their bursaries paid. But guess what? It's what you voted for. There are many of them who voted to keep it, but too many of you voted against it. You voted against it hoping that it would continue. To me, that don't make sense. If you have a policy, you have the government that instituted the policy, you have the government that was executing the policy, but you voted against the policy hoping that the policy would continue. Explain that to me. Explain that to me. So now they're frantic. They're frantic. They want to know how the tuitions are going to be paid. And The NDP may decide to pay it. I mean, they already have a deficit budget of 105 million, so that might be where they take away the money from. We don't know. We will see. But I hope they pay it. Because even though, that's how nice, even though you voted against, you voted to change your educational system, your education, not educational system, I say now, the circumstances surrounding your education. You decided you were getting your education practically free because the government was funding it and you wanted to change that. You said time for a change. What did you mean? You meant that you now want to pay for your own education. So go on, pay. Labor there too long, man. Time for change, man. Let's try something else. Okay. The votes are consequences. And that change brings along a withdrawal or a loss of your tuition scholarship. Are your fault? Your fault. So you voted for a change. You voted to change your circumstances in education. So now it has changed. What are you complaining for? Not that you don't want to change. Well, take it. The NDP after the elections proudly and boldly proclaimed, we are abolishing all fees. Well, that must have been a typo. That must have been a typo. In the words of Lavon King, the PRO, the messaging could have been a little tighter because when they said all fees, they didn't mean all. Let's think about Vincentians. You know Vincentians. You talk about the adjectives. How we go? Normative, comparative, superlative, or so? Right. So for emphasis, we don't use comparative and so on. We just repeat it. We don't use, like for example, let me get a joke. Let me joke. Let me get an example. So when the thing is tight, for emphasis, we don't qualify. So we don't say it was very tight or it was extremely tight. What do we say? It tight. So there's a difference between tight and tight. That's how we just talk. Me lie? No, me lie. It could be a drink. Oh, this is very sweet. No. A drink. Mother, this is sweet. Like sweet. Repeat. So when the NDP said that they were going to eliminate all fees for educational institutions, they didn't mean all. They just meant all. So if that said they were going to eliminate all, then fees for nursing and so on would have been included. But they only said all. They were going to eliminate all fees. That doesn't include everybody. They were either supposed to say, we in the NDP government will be eliminating all fees. Or even better, we would not just all, but all. You mean all? All. Somebody know what I'm talking about. Somebody know what I'm talking about. The NDP's modus operandi, the way they do things, is that they don't prioritize the working class. And they've never prioritized education of the working class. They never have. And when they were campaigning and they were feeding the pipe dream, I knew all along that these were just gimmicks. They were fooling people. And I pray to God that people didn't fall for the gimmicks. But it's either one of two things. It's either God didn't answer me prayer. Or, like the Israelites, you ask for a king that will oppress you, as in the case of Saul. And with all of the warnings of what the oppressive king would do, you still went and you voted the NDP. So the oppression that you'd face with your education now is of your own making. The oppression that you'd face with the reconstruction and rehabilitation of your homes is of your own making. I tell you, there are some difficult times ahead based on what is happening globally. Expect it. Expect it. We warned you. At this point in time, I am out of. I, I have called them out on their lies so many times that I'm not even sure if it's getting anywhere, because it seems that people love the lies. They don't mind. As Barry Zaman said, you fell for one of them sweet lies. Well, in the case of those who voted the NDP, it's not one, it's plenty. The double bubble lie, the cut VAT in 60 days lie, the reinstate teachers with benefits lie, the abolition of all fees for educational institutions lie. All lies. No. If you voted for a lie, and that's the unfortunate thing about it. It doesn't matter how many times you repeat a lie, it doesn't become more true. It doesn't become more true. You've just simply decided to believe it. And that's on you. So for the Vincentians who are studying, who were awarded tuition assistance scholarships by the ULP government, who now are wondering whether or not the NDP government that we have is refusing to honor the government's commitment, even though you voted for the NDP in some cases. I really do hope that they find some integrity some way, man up, and pay the tuition, because I know how much your educational journey means to you. And those of you who are at the School of Nursing, the Division of Nursing Education, and they're telling you that you have to pay your fees, and you might have been getting some assistance from the lottery or what have you, I really hope that they sort it out so that you can have your fees paid, even though you voted to change the fee payment situation that you were under. You voted for it because you voted against what you had. You voted to change what you had. But I know how much becoming a nurse means to you, and I pray that it be sorted out. But I have to be honest and tell you, in the event that you had to pay the fees and you had to drop out, in the event that your tuition assistance doesn't come and you have to put your university education on hold, when that reality hits you, just remind yourself that it is what you voted for. And if you didn't vote for it, but instead you voted to maintain the policy with a vote for Labour, the most I could do is encourage you not to give up and assure you that a time will come, it might not be too far now, but you'll have the chance to vote to reverse what was done on November 25th. And all of these things that happen now are experiences that are going to fuel your decision going forward. And many people who supported Labour over the last 25 years, 6 elections, even going back to 1998, 7 elections, did so because they felt the strain and the pressure of the lack of opportunities and the oppression of the previous NDP. And maybe some of you needed to feel it under this one and say you voted for it. So hopefully when you feel it, you'll understand why people like me, we were encouraging you to choose wisely. But you didn't listen. And now things are the way they are. Look, even them boys, NDP 97.1 FM, telling you how slow things are. They say Friday slow. And that's no pun. That's that's not a Friday slow. Whether it is Godwin Friday or the Friday of the week, Friday is just slow. Let me thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And I apologize again for the late start because of my change in location and a little carelessness on my part. But I hope that you enjoyed tonight's program and it gave you a lot to reflect on. And again, let me thank all of the individuals I met uh, earlier today who greeted me warmly, who approached me, and who showed me so much love and support. And for those of you who continue to contribute, who continue to donate, who are subscribing, who are activating membership, listen, I owe you a debt of gratitude. Until next Thursday, God's willing, when I'm back with you with another edition of Uplift with Sehon Marshall. Let me wish you a very good Thursday night. Take care.